Still hungry, it tried to eliminate her, but Hyakimaru arrived and stopped it just in time. As he slashed the beast, Dororo wondered why he came. But they soon noticed that the shark was starting to stir awake, so Hyakimaru told her that it was a demon. Immediately, he began charging at the monster, and jumped over to the other side, but it managed to catch his wooden leg. Desperate to kill it, he stabbed its eye, and the monster tried shaking him off, but he continued stabbing it. As Asura tried running towards the shark, it smacked him away, so Hyakimaru jumped high and stabbed it really deep, eventually killing it. With the monster dead, Hyakimaru decided to rub heads with Dororo, and she thanked him for coming to her rescue. Right then, Hyakimaru started groaning, and as the wood fell out, Dororo realized that a new leg had grown out of him. However, with time running out, Dororo suggested they find Itachi immediately, so they began heading towards the mountain. Meanwhile on the mountain, Itachi and the men arrived at a cave, and he thought that the treasure was definitely inside. Eager to find it, two of his men entered inside, thinking they were about to become millionaires. But as one stepped on a trap, the place exploded immediately. Even so, Itachi thought he had it all figured out, and tried saying that he would definitely find the treasure now. Just then, they noticed Daigo's ship sailing towards the island, and Hyakimaru realized they were definitely coming for him. Before long, they arrived on the shore, and Matsu told Tahamaru that they found Hyakimaru's boat on the other side of the island. This was all he needed to hear, so he commanded his army to eliminate Hyakimaru and everything else in sight. After noticing their presence, Itachi wondered why they came in the first place, but when arrows were fired at his men, he realized that they came to annihilate them all, so he began running away for his life, realizing his chance at finding the treasure was probably gone forever. At the same time, Dororo and Hyakimaru were running off to a safe spot. As two archers tried launching arrows at them, they knocked them out with rocks, and continued running away. While Dororo began climbing up the mountain, she realized that Itachi and his men were already hiding here, and he told her that he still hasn't found her father's treasure. So Dororo began screaming at him to wake the fuck up, saying that their survival was more important than any money. But Itachi thought Tahamaru would find it and claim it as his own. As Hyakimaru suggested they create a distraction, Itachi thought he has the perfect plan. So a few minutes later, one of his men pretended to be a wounded samurai, and told the army that Itachi was preparing explosives. Right then, a rock exploded, and the soldiers hurried to the site. Utilizing their distraction, Itachi suggested that they hurry to the shore. However, as they began to leave, one of the men was killed with an arrow, and they realized that Matsu was aiming at them from the shore, before noticing Hyogo on the rock above them. At that moment, Tahamaru began approaching them, saying that Hyakimaru was the demon terrorizing their land and must be slain immediately. Angered by the sight of him, Hyakimaru charged forward, but Hyogo landed before him, cracking the ground with his weapon, and the cliff crumbled at that instant. However, Hyakimaru managed to catch a rock, and returned immediately. As he locked swords with Tahamaru, Itachi screamed for his men to run, and began pulling Dororo away. At the same time, Hyakimaru dodged Hyogo's weapon, and destroyed Matsu's arrows. As he hid behind a tree, he wondered how Tahamaru became so evil and vengeful like his father, so Matsu revealed that killing him was the only way he could protect his land. As he fired an arrow that pierced his back, Tahamaru decided to utilize this advantage, and attacked again, allowing Hyogo to break his sword. In the meantime, Itachi and his men tried sneaking around the mountain, but arrows pierced his men before they escaped. Before long, they discovered a line of statues, and Itachi revealed that this spot was marked on his map. As he started checking the statues, he realized that he could easily become a millionaire when he finds the treasure. But an arrow pierced his back at that instant. Afraid he would be captured, he flung his sword at the army, killing one of the samurai, but they launched more arrows at him. Luckily, Dororo hid behind one of the statues, but as it fell, it pushed off the rest of them, and they began sliding down the mountain, crushing the men immediately. At the battle, Hyakimaru evaded Hyogo's weapon, and climbed up on a tree, but as Matsu's arrow missed, he flew towards Tahamaru with his sword, but Hyogo knocked him back and pushed him towards the rock. As he screamed for Tahamaru to end him, Hyakimaru kicked him away, and backed him into the wall, saying that they are now his enemies, and they began clashing swords like sworn rivals. At the same time, Itachi realized he was about to enter Nirvana, but told Dororo that he hopes to see the treasure before his soul leaves his body. At that moment, they spotted Asura on a cliff, and he revealed that he came to isekai everyone. Right then, he threw down his torch, and an explosion erupted, destroying the mountain and sending rocks crashing on the soldiers. As Hyakimaru escaped, Tahamaru commanded his men to retreat immediately, so when the dust cleared, Hyakimaru decided to search for Dororo. Meanwhile, Dororo and Itachi woke up inside a cave, and they discovered that the treasure was right before their eyes. However, as Itachi tried reaching for the gold, his soul left his body at that moment. So Dororo decided to pay her last respects, and told Hyakimaru that she has no idea what to do with all this money. When it got dark that night, they began sailing away from the island. By the following week, Tahomaru realized that all the villages were beginning to starve, and that epidemics were starting to spread again. Hyogo said that the demons were probably responsible, and thought they were being punished for failing to kill Hyakimaru. However, Tahomaru thought only the demons could reveal the truth, and suggested they head for the Hall of Demons, where all of Dago's statues were kept. Meanwhile, on the far side of the world, Dororo realized that it was fall, and wondered why this was the first time she's ever noticed. As they rested for a moment, a man appeared on the mountain, wondering if they came to search for demons. When Dororo wondered who he was, he told her that he came to look for the same demon. So as he began leading them away, he revealed that his name is Saburoda, and said that he's been hunting the demon for over 6 months. He told them that it was a powerful beast, and revealed his scar as proof, because after it ate his mother out. He's been waiting to get his revenge ever since. However, Hyakimaru didn't believe a single word he said, and decided to lead Dororo away. Before long, they arrived on the top of a mountain, and Saburoda told them that the beast always shows up here. Just then, it appeared on a rock, and Dororo realized that this monster was not like any they have ever fought. However, as Hyakimaru discovered that it was actually a demon, he charged at it immediately, and the demon charged back at him. As he dodged its fist, he leapt back, but soon realized that the serpent tail was about to devour Dororo. In an instant, he rescued her and blocked Saburoda's attack, making him retreat. Dororo thought he must have lost his mind, and wondered why he was siding with the demon, so he revealed that he was its servant, and said that he offers everyone as a snack to even the loss of his mother. Just then, the beast began charging at them, but Hyakimaru jumped out of its way, causing it to smash into the rock. Before they knew it, the cliff broke, and the rocks crumbled to the ground. A few minutes later, as Dororo regained consciousness, she realized that her arm was stuck in the rubble. As she tried to pull it out, they discovered that water was starting to spring out of the ground, and realized that the place would be flooded in only a matter of time. Hoping to save her, Hyakimaru tried to pull out her arm. But as he fell back, Dororo realized that his fake arms were far too useless. Even so, Hyakimaru would not quit, and tried pushing the boulder, but in only a short time, a pool formed around them, and his cast began to break. Afraid he would not stop, Dororo tried telling him that she would escape on her own. But more water started gushing, and nearly overwhelmed her. Desperate to save her, Hyakimaru pushed even harder until his cast completely broke, and Dororo began to drown. As his desperation increased, Hyakimaru tried smashing the rock, but even this was futile. However, Muni appeared just in time, and stabbed his sword into the boulder, cracking it and rescuing Dororo immediately. He revealed that he was just within the area, and was happy to have made it here just in time. However, Hyakimaru had no time for chit-chats, and began to leave, abandoning his fake arms. As he arrived on the mountain, Saburoda wondered how he managed to survive, but Hyakimaru told him that he was here to annihilate the demon. Immediately, the beast jumped on top of him, but he raised it with his swords, and slashed it at once. As the monster retreated, Hyakimaru began approaching it, and slashed it again. Desperate to stop him, Saburoda flew with his sword, but he blocked his attack, and cast him aside. Without hesitating, he jumped on top of the monster and sliced its face in half. At the sight of this, Saburoda wished he was as powerful as him, and thought he could have saved his mother with a similar move. When Hyakimaru tried to end it, Saburoda tackled him to the ground, and told him that he wishes he could have been a better warrior. Right then, the demon devoured him, and vanished before Hyakimaru could slay it. Before his eyes, it unleashed its wings as a powerful aura surrounded it, and a weird face grew out of the demon. As it flew towards Hyakimaru, he stood his ground, determined to slay it. A few minutes later, when Dororo arrived on the mountain, she discovered that the serpent tail had been cut off, and as she followed the trail of blood, she noticed that the demon's body parts were all over the place. Just then, she realized that Hyakimaru had totally annihilated the beast, and even his sword was pierced into Saburoda. At his final moment, Saburoda realized that Hyakimaru was not human after all, but he slashed his head off. However, no body part grew this time, so he began stabbing the monster, hoping to kill it again if it wasn't dead already. As Dororo tried to stop him, he began screaming for his body, and continued stabbing the beast like it was a large chunk of meat. Meanwhile, Tahomaru and his men arrived inside the Hall of Demons, and before their eyes, another statue began to crack, leaving only one standing. Right then, Hyakimaru began to leave. When Dororo asked him where he was headed, he told her that Dago was the last demon, and that he needed to kill his father to finally become human. A few days later, as they got closer to Dago's village, a few soldiers rode past them, and Dororo realized that their banner was for the Asakura clan. As she thought they were probably preparing for a war, she tried telling Hyakimaru to wait it out, but his only desire was to reclaim his body parts, and he told her that he would definitely confront Dago. Meanwhile, in Dago's palace, a man began telling him that Hyakimaru was heading towards the village, and as Tahomaru overheard him, he offered to eliminate him before he arrives. He said that this was his duty, and that it was their only hope for restoring the village. Realizing his mind was made up, Dago decided to grant him his permission, so he left. The following day, as he began heading out with his men, He told them that they would not return until Hayakimaru was dead. In the meantime, Dororo and Hayakimaru continued their journey towards the village. As they came across a man, he wondered if they were heading to Dago's town, and suggested that they return immediately. He said that a war would break out soon, and thought they would be caught in between both armies. However, Hayakimaru couldn't care less about the war, and began to leave anyway. As the man tried to stop him, he threatened to kill him, and told him to get his disgusting face out of his sight, so the man ran away for his life. Immediately, he began walking again, and Dororo tried persuading him to wait until the war was over, but he told her that he must reclaim his body and sent her stumbling to the ground. Realizing she could not persuade him, Dororo told him that she would not follow him anymore, so he tried telling her that he was just trying to reclaim what was stolen away from him. He told her that he wishes to see with his own eyes and to feel warmth with his hands. This was his desire, and Dororo realized that he was right to want his own body back. The next day, as they arrived at a deep trench, Hayakimaru realized that over 1,000 bodies have been abandoned in it. In an instant, he blocked an arrow that shattered his cast, and they realized that Tahamaru and his men have come to eliminate him. Hungry for revenge, Hayakimaru told Dororo to back away, saying that Tahamaru was not his family, and began approaching them. Ready for a fight, Tahamaru drew his sword, saying that he would revive his village at the cost of his life. As birds flew out of the trench, Hayakimaru charged at him, so Tahamaru ordered Matsu to fire an arrow, and managed to kick him aside. Immediately, Hayakimaru began evading Hyogo's continued attacks before jumping away. At once, he started charging at Matsu, and his cast was destroyed by another arrow, but Hayakimaru stabbed him, and ripped off his arm before slicing Hyogo's arm. As he tried to end him, Tahamaru blocked his sword, and they began striking and slashing at each other like damaged, vengeful enemies, determined to slay the other until Hayakimaru kicked him away. As he jumped to end him, Tahamaru rolled away, and as Hayakimaru attacked again, he narrowly avoided getting slashed before slicing his face. Even so, they charged at each other once more, but an explosive was fired into the ground, so Hayakimaru jumped away before it went off. At that moment, reinforcements arrived, and Yumi jumped over Hayakimaru to distract him. As he rode past him once more, he began charging again, igniting an explosive before jumping away from his horse. Immediately, they fired an arrow at it, and it bumped into Hayakimaru, pushing him towards the cliff. Before he knew it, the horse exploded, sending him falling into the trench. So one of the men seized Dororo, and began taking her away. As Tahamaru wondered why Yumi decided to show up, he told him that his father ordered him to save his life, seeing as he was the next leader of the clan. However, Tahamaru could only think of revenge, and began heading towards the trench, so Yumi shot him with a sleeping dart, and he passed out at that instant. With Dororo desperate to regain her freedom, Yumi revealed that they were taking her to the village to leverage their chances with Hayakimaru. So they began riding away, as Dororo continued screaming for Hayakimaru. Before long, it began to rain, and Hayakimaru was too weak to stand on his own. At that moment, mystical flames began to burn, and as it burned up the horse, it resurrected as a demon. Eventually, Hayakimaru made it out of the trench, and realized that Dororo has been captured. As he grew angry, desperate for revenge, he noticed the flaming demon horse, and realized that it was exactly what he needed. In Dago's village, Tahamaru discovered that Matsu had caught a disease that made his injury worse. However, as he tried to see him, Hyogo stopped him from entering the room, afraid that he would catch the same disease. At this realization, his anger increased, and he vowed to slay Hayakimaru 1,000 times over as payback. Meanwhile, Dororo was trapped inside a cell, and she realized she couldn't break the lock. As she heard a noise outside, she pretended to be asleep, thinking it was probably a samurai. However, Mina appeared before her and opened up the cell, allowing her to escape. As they began sneaking out of the palace, Mina revealed that she was leading her to a hidden tunnel, but asked to know who Hayakimaru really was. However, Dororo thought it was probably too late, and reminded her that she already abandoned him even after meeting him. As they arrived at the secret tunnel, Mina began leading her through the cave, until they eventually arrived outside the village. So she thanked her for staying with Hayakimaru, saying that she has probably kept him from losing his mind. However, as Dororo began to leave, she realized that Mina was following her, and she revealed that she wishes to see Hayakimaru one final time. Meanwhile in the village, Hyogo appeared before Tahamaru, and began telling him that Matsu had vanished from his room, and they thought he intends to isekai himself. At the guard post, two men noticed the demon horse, and it ran through their post, destroying everything in its path. At the same time, Dororo and Mina began sailing towards another village, and Mina remembered how she tried searching for Hayakimaru at the lake when he was first abandoned, but found no traces of him. Thinking her presence might be useless on the battlefield, Dororo tried telling her to return home, but she said that her only desire was to see Hayakimaru one final time. Right then, the boat rocked from a strong current, and the speed increased out of control. Mina thought the water was probably surging down from the mountain, and they noticed the broken bridge before them. As they crashed on the bridge, they fell into the water, and Dororo began sinking deep. However, by the time she woke up, she saw Muni before her, and he told her that she washed up on the shore. As she realized she was in a new village, she wondered if Mina managed to survive, and thought she may have drowned in the lake. Before long, they started walking through the village, and Dororo noticed all the sick villagers. As Mooney introduced her to one of the men, Yahiko, she discovered that he carried her from the shore. And right then, she noticed that Mina was helping the sick villagers, but the men wondered who she was. As they stood outside the village, looking at the ruin, Dororo realized that the surviving villagers were angry at Dago for burning up their homes, and she thought they would kill Mina if they discovered she was his queen. Later that day, as she met Mina at the stream, she told her that the war has almost begun, and said that Hyakimaru was probably in the village already. She said that he may become a demon, and that the demon flame in him was starting to burn brighter. At that moment, a man ran into the village, and began telling the others that Dago's army were waiting on a nearby hill, and were ready for war. However, they weren't facing the Asakura army, but were rather afraid of a single demon. Hearing those words, Dororo realized it was probably Hyakimaru, and Mina wondered if they could really stop him. Meanwhile on the hill, a mighty tornado began blowing away the soldiers, and they spotted Hyakimaru on the flaming horse, oozing with a dark aura. As he raised his sword, he charged at them with a fierce tornado, and began slaying them like a deranged maniac. In the meantime, Matsu made his way to the Hall of Demons, and stumbled inside. As he grew desperate for power, he tried summoning the 12th demon, and offered himself up in exchange for Hyakimaru. At that moment, a mighty breeze surrounded him, but Tahamaru and Hyogo arrived, hoping to stop him. However, Hyogo's mind was already made up, and he revealed that he was making this sacrifice for the people. Just then, he realized that the demon refused his offer, as only Hyakimaru could complete the sacrifice. At that instant, a powerful lightning struck the temple, and they realized that the demon was about to unleash its power. At the same time, Dororo and Mina began climbing up the hill, hoping they wouldn't be too late to stop Hyakimaru. On the hill, Hyakimaru continued destroying the army, slashing body parts, and eventually came across Yumi. As he demanded to know where Dororo was, Yumi threw a knife that grazed his arm, so the horse burned him before he could escape. As he began riding towards the village, he spotted Tahamaru and his men who came ready for the battle. Just then, a strange eye grew on Tahamaru's head, and his closed eye revealed a new weird eye. At the sight of this, Hyakimaru realized they had acquired new powers from the demon, and discovered they had grown new arms and extra eyes. These were his body parts, and he grew desperate to reclaim them, so he charged at them immediately. As they clashed swords, Tahamaru said that killing him was their only hope for restoring the village. But he evaded getting smashed, and Hyogo revealed that they wouldn't stop until he was dead. So Matsu clashed swords with him, and threw him off his horse. At the same time in the village, a young horse became restless as it sensed the danger, and began running away. At the sight of this, Yumi thought something was definitely wrong, and began pursuing it. At the battle, Hyakimaru evaded a slash, determined to get back his body, but Tahamaru blocked his attack, forcing him to jump back on his horse. Right then, he unleashed a tornado, preparing for a new attack, but Tahamaru began saying that he was nothing but bad news to them, and that his life was far too useless to be worth anything. However, his words made Hyakimaru's anger grow even worse, and he screamed for his body parts to be returned. As he jumped to end Tahamaru, he blocked again, and sliced his arm, spilling his tomato sauce. At the same time, Dororo and Mina arrived. As Dororo tried running to them, Mooney appeared at that moment, saying that it would be far too dangerous for her, as she may get killed. He revealed that Tahamaru and his men have acquired the power of the demons, and said that the demons intend to devour Hyakimaru all over again, and that the only way he would regain the rest of his body parts was if he manages to slay the men. Just then, they noticed the young horse running towards the battle, so Dororo ran after it, hoping to stop it from interfering. At the battle, Matsu and Hyogo appeared before the demon horse, and were ready to slay it. However, it wouldn't back down, and began charging at them. As it knocked Hyogo to the ground, it tried to squash him, but noticed the young horse approaching, so Hyogo and Matsu stabbed it at the same time, utilizing its distraction, and eventually slashing it. However, it wouldn't go down easily, so it ripped off Hyogo's head and kicked Matsu away. As he managed to land on his sword, he flew back, and Hyogo's arm drew his blade, as both of them stabbed it in a combined attack before dropping dead. At this discovery, Tahamaru smacked Hyakimaru away, and rode off to them. Just then, the horses reunited, but the wounded one eventually lost its flame and passed away, and Dororo realized they were actually family. As Tahamaru found his men, he realized that he could not save them, and the memories they shared flashed across his mind. So he began screaming at their loss, but 2 new hands grew out of Hyakimaru's body. This was his true desire, and he raised his hands in victory. As Tahamaru tried to end him, he blocked his strike, and kicked him back, determined to keep his body. At that moment, he heard Mina's voice, and realized that Dororo was by her side, so he tried hiding his blades. However, Tahamaru was hoping to kill him this time, and told his mother to step aside, calling him a curse to their village. Immediately, Hyakimaru began running away, desperate to survive, so Tahamaru pursued him. As he began running through a field, he wondered why he was considered evil for trying to reclaim his own body, so he stabbed his blades into the ground, realizing he definitely wants his eyes restored. So as Tahamaru began charging towards him with a sword, he blocked his attack, but he jumped back immediately. Without hesitating, they began striking at each other like reincarnated enemies, with neither of them willing to surrender, until Hyakimaru slashed his face. At that moment, Tahamaru realized that Hyakimaru's new arms were an advantage for him, so as he managed to ward him off, He began running away, but Hayakimaru pursued him, continuing with his attacks, and even slashed the grass. However, he realized that Tahamaru had vanished. But once he spotted him, he began pursuing him again, determined to reclaim his eyes. At the hill, Dororo wondered how she could end the fight, so Muni revealed that it would only end when one of them was slain. As one of the men began saying that Hayakimaru was better off donating his body to the demons for peace, Dororo grew angry at his words, and tackled him to the ground, calling him a selfish, useless, filthy human who was willing to sacrifice someone else and not himself. So she began pounding on him, telling him to donate his own body to the demons if he thought it was the right thing to do. As Yahiko pulled her away, he tried telling her that sacrificing Hayakimaru for the village was a worthy sacrifice. However, his words made her anger grow worse, and she tried pounding on him, but Mina began saying that Hayakimaru's sacrifice brought them long-term peace. But it never could have lasted forever because they failed to obtain the peace on their own. At that moment, Dororo realized that their only hope for having a better world was to create it by themselves, so she said that they must grow stronger. Meanwhile, Hayakimaru continued pursuing Tahamaru, and as he spotted him down the hill, he realized that he was heading for the village, so he followed him immediately. Inside the village, a commander told Daigo that another Asakura army were approaching from the east side, so Daigo commanded him to summon his men, hoping to stop them from entering the village. As the commander left, Daigo realized that he was about to lose the entire village, and decided that he must save whatever was left. So he began marching with his army to the east side, hoping to guard it until the very end. On the hill, Dororo thought Muni's words made no sense at all, and began saying that growing stronger was not a bad thing, but that they only need to have a good heart to create a better world for themselves. Hearing her words, they thought she was inspiring, so Yahiko agreed that they must protect themselves. Meanwhile in the palace, Tahamaru began waiting for Hayakimaru's arrival, and was ready for another round of battle. Just then, the lamps went off, and Hayakimaru appeared before his eyes. As he readied his sword, Hayakimaru charged at him, striking and jumping around like a ghoul, as they continued their relentless onslaught. And as Tahamaru tried backing him into the wall, he threw him off, striking him with all the anger in his body, until his sword got stuck on the wood. As he dodged his blade, Tahamaru backed away immediately. At that moment, a fire ignited, but neither of the men was willing to surrender. Tahamaru thought this was the perfect place to end him forever, but Hayakimaru was determined to reclaim his eyes. On the hill, the men noticed the palace was burning, and Yahiko thought the Asakura army must have invaded the village. But Muni told them that the brothers were probably responsible. Hoping to stop them, Dororo began running towards the village, so Mina decided to follow her. At the same time, Kyujai arrived at the village, and thought he was responsible for this disaster. In the palace, the brothers continued fighting even in the flames, slicing each other, and striking swords with all the anger and determination in their body. As they fought with all their strength, Hayakimaru backed away from the fire, but was bent on reclaiming his eyes, even ready to burn the entire world for it. So they began fighting again, and as Tahamaru struck the wall, the memories of his men flashed across his mind. The thought made him angrier, and he attacked with all his might. He said that Hayakimaru doesn't belong in this world, and should just die already, but Hayakimaru told him that the village was built with his body, and that he was the only reason it existed. So they started striking swords once more, and eventually took the fight outside, chasing each other through the palace, with neither of them willing to give up. Tahamaru said that this has always been his home, and called Hayakimaru an intruder for returning. Right then, he realized that Mina had always ignored him, and thought she probably liked Hayakimaru better. As he grew jealous, he tried to attack him, but Hayakimaru blocked his sword. Tahamaru began saying that he has always defended the village, and that Hayakimaru has no place here. But Hayakimaru wondered why he has a void in his heart. However, Tahamaru thought he was probably responsible for it, and said that he stole their mother from him. As he attacked again, they fell through the balcony, crashing through the roof, and eventually landed on a heap. In an instant, Hayakimaru slashed across his face, but he kicked him away. Realizing his good eye could barely see, Tahamaru switched to the demon eyes, and they clashed once more. Meanwhile, Dororo was trying to make her way into the palace, but realized that the flames were blocking her path. As she began hurrying away, hoping to find another way through, she came across Muni, and he revealed that Mina was sneaking inside through a secret passage. Eager to watch the fight, Dororo offered to come along, but Mina said that her life would be in danger, and told her to watch over Hayakimaru if he manages to survive. Before long, she arrived at the entrance, but discovered that it was locked from the inside. As she tried turning away, it opened at that moment, and Kyujai appeared before her eyes. He told her that he's been waiting for her, and decided to pull her outside. In the meantime, the brothers continued their unending battle, climbing up the roof and bursting onto the balcony, as they fought like their lives were on a timer. With all their strength, they swung their swords, cutting and slashing like men on a mission. But Hayakimaru pushed him off to a wall. As he flew through the dust, ready to end him, he noticed his heartbeat, and realized that he was still human, so he sliced his sword, cutting the wall just above him. Right then, Tahamaru knew he could have been dead already, and wondered why Hayakimaru decided to spare his life. So Hayakimaru told him that they were the same, and said that they were both human. Hearing his words, Tahamaru realized he could never defeat him, and decided to surrender. At that moment, the 12th demon began roaring at the temple, and Tahamaru's eyes glowed with a purple light, so Hayakimaru leapt back. As Tahamaru realized that this was his chance to end the demon contract, he ripped out the eyes, and they vanished in that instant. Immediately, Hayakimaru began to groan, and flames dispersed outside. At the same time, Dororo was eager to know how it would end, so she decided to go down into the tunnel. Inside, the floorboard exploded, and a dark energy tried to capture Hayakimaru, but he destroyed it, and jumped into the opening, stabbing the core and relinquishing his blades as the prosthetic eyes flew out of him. As a blue light split the demon root, Hayakimaru began screaming for his eyes, and Tahamaru passed out at that moment. However, right before getting crushed, Mina and Kyujai saved him just in time, and Mina was happy to see him alive. As she apologized for abandoning him, she said that he must survive, and promised to love him forever. Realizing his opportunity, Kyujai decided to reveal his gift, a Buddha statue, telling him to remain human no matter what. So as Kyujai led him away, he looked at his mother for the very last time, and thought she was beautiful. But the roof collapsed immediately, and he fell into the tunnel. Afraid they would be burned by the flames, Dororo tried helping him up, saying that they must leave immediately. So with Hayakimaru safe, Mina tried soothing Tahamaru, apologizing for abandoning him, and saying that she would stay by his side forever. In the tunnel, as Hayakimaru began ascending towards the outside, he noticed Dororo for the very first time, and told her that she was pretty. However, she was afraid that her secret would be exposed, and tried to silence him before anyone discovers. After making it outside, they realized that the entire palace was destroyed, so Muni revealed that this was how Hayakimaru's journey was destined to end. Before they knew it, the entire village went ablaze, and Dororo wondered if this was happening because Hayakimaru reclaimed all his body parts. Outside the city, as a messenger arrived, he began telling Daigo that the village was on fire, and revealed that Mina and Tahamaru have died in the flames. As Daigo heard these words, he began marching towards the Asakura army, hoping to destroy them just as his village has been destroyed. By the following week, Dororo told the men that she has enough gold stuffed away on a mountain, and said that they would rebuild the village with it. Excited by the news, the men wondered how soon they could claim the gold, but Dororo thought they would easily turn on her, and said that she would retrieve it on her own. As she came across Muni, he told her that he was impressed with her idea, and wondered where Hayakimaru has gone. But she didn't know. Meanwhile, Hayakimaru already made his way to the village, and began heading for the Hall of Demons. As he entered inside, he spotted Daigo, and wondered what his next intentions were. So Daigo began saying that he would never quit, but would sacrifice another human to the demons for a new contract. Hearing his words, Hayakimaru thought he intends to offer him to the demons once again, and grabbed his sword, ready to slay him. However, he decided to stab his helmet instead, saying that he chooses peace over another war. Just as he began to leave, he said that he was now human, and suggested